Okay, online learners, last episode of our biological molecules, the nucleic acids. You probably, when you think of nutrition, you don't think, how do I eat my nucleic acids? And that's because they're not really a food group. Nucleic acids are DNA, RNA, and ATP. So as we go through nucleic acids, we're going to talk about the structure again, the function, and again, examples. And the structure is something called a nucleotide.
Nucleic acids are a class of biomolecules that are found in all living organisms and are responsible for the storage of genetic information. They are also responsible for protein synthesis. Nucleic acids are made up of monomers called nucleotides.
Okay, so our repeating unit is or our monomer is a nucleotide. So here is our sugar, and you know how we talked about each corner is a carbon? This is a 5-carbon sugar called fructose, or ribose actually, ribose, and it is 5 carbons. Then you have our phosphate group, and then if you remember in DNA we talk about A's, T's, G's, and C's. This is our nitrogenous base. And when you have a sugar, phosphate, and a nitrogenous base, you have a nucleotide.
Nucleotides are made up of 3 components: a 5-carbon sugar, such as ribose, a phosphate functional group, and a nitrogenous base. The 5-carbon sugar present in DNA is deoxyribose, and the 4 nitrogenous bases are adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine. Nucleotides are linked together by dehydration synthesis, or polymerization reactions, between the sugar of one nucleotide and the phosphate group of a second.
Okay, when we look at DNA and RNA, we talk about a sugar phosphate backbone. So here's our sugar phosphate, and here's our A's and G's and T's and C's, which are like the steps on our DNA or RNA molecule.
Nucleotide. In the process, a sugar phosphate backbone is formed, linking the nucleotides together. Notice how the nitrogenous bases project to one side of the backbone. DNA is composed of 2 strands arranged as a right-handed helix. The strands are also antiparallel, meaning that they are oriented in opposite directions. The 2 strands are held together by hydrogen bonds.
So here is a beautiful example of how hydrogen bonds interact again. And what we'll look at is, based on the molecule shape, one group is held together by 3 hydrogen bonds and the other by 2.
Guanine forms hydrogen bonds with cytosine.
So there's your 3's.
And adenine bonds with thymine.
And there's your 2's.
And
because you have 3's and 2's, this is what prevent the wrong one from matching up.
Complementary base pairing links the strands together. It also plays an important role in the replication of the DNA molecule. RNA differs from DNA in that it contains the sugar ribose instead of deoxyribose and the nitrogenous base uracil instead.
Okay, when you look at RNA, RNA is copied from DNA, but it's only a single strand and it's a shorter chunk. It still has the sugar phosphate backbone, but the sugar is, instead of being deoxyribose, it is ribose, hence the R and not the D. And then you have, you still have adenine, cytosine, and guanine, but instead you have uracil.
Instead of thymine. Also, RNA is usually single-stranded and does not typically form a helix. Because of this, it is less stable than DNA and is usually more temporary. While DNA stores the information that is needed to construct a protein, RNA functions in regulating the expression of this information in the protein synthesis process.
So when we look at DNA, one of the differences is the shape, the single strand versus double strand. The DNA stores the genetic material, and the RNA helps translate it and copy it.
Information processing in the cell. back to the sugar ribose.
Okay, the last nucleic acid that I want to talk about with you is adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. Now, tri means there's 3 of them. So here's our adenosine, which is our nitrogenous base. Here is our sugar, and now we have 3 phosphates in this situation. And each of these phosphates take energy to bond onto it. So when you break that bond, you can release that energy, and it acts as an energy molecule for the body. Okay, let's summarize our last molecule, nucleic acids. Now, nucleic acids have a repeating group called a nucleotide, and that nucleotide is made up of a sugar, a phosphate, and a nitrogenous base. If you have a deoxyribose sugar, you can have the molecule DNA, which is double-stranded, and it has nitrogen bases, adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine. You don't need to know what A, T, G, and C stands for yet. You will by the end of the course. It's a long coiled molecule, and DNA codes for genetic material. Unlike RNA, which has ribose sugar in it, and it is only single strand. It has A, U, G, and C. It's in smaller fragments, and it is responsible for copying and transferring the genetic material to the cytoplasm so that you can make proteins. Then the third molecule we looked at is also a nucleic acid, and this one has adenine as its nitrogen base, and it has 3 phosphate groups on it, and it's these 3 phosphate groups that contain the high energy bond that acts as the energy molecule for the cell. And that is our our biological molecules. Now, you have an assessment where you need to summarize this information in a table, and you can find that later on in the module. Please make sure you summarize. Do not copy and paste. It must be summarized. And that's it. Take care.